Maya and Derek graduated the same May, same state school, 0.3 of a GPA point apart. Maya went into nonprofit healthcare administration. Derek went into corporate development at a private equity-backed logistics company. City, same year, same one-bedroom rent when they started. Today, the news tells both of them the exact same thing every single morning. Unemployment is low. The stock market hit another record high last week. GDP grew faster than almost every other developed economy on Earth. By every headline number that exists, they are both living through one of the best documented economic stretches in American history. Derek believes it. He got a bonus this year that covered a down payment. 401k, invested almost entirely in the S&P 500, is up double digits. Company's stock, which he holds through RSUs, has more than doubled in 3 years. Maya does not believe it, and she is not wrong to not believe it. Her paycheck grew 3% this year. Her rent grew 6%. Her health insurance premium, deducted automatically before she ever sees the number, grew 9%. She does not own stock in any meaningful way. 401k match is small, and she has not been able to max it in 2 years. Reads the same headline Derek reads, and feels something between confusion and rage. My name is Horizon, and I spend an unreasonable amount of my life reading Federal Reserve survey data. If you have ever looked at a headline about a booming economy and felt genuinely insane for not feeling any of it yourself, hit subscribe. Spoiler, it was never describing you. It was describing Derek's aunt. Let's start with the number everyone leads with, GDP growth. U.S. economy has, for most of the recent stretch, grown faster than nearly every other G7 nation. So why does a growing pie feel like it's shrinking on your plate? Because GDP measures the size of the pie. It says absolutely nothing about who is holding the knife. GDP grows when a company's profits grow, when the stock market grows, when high earners spend more on services, when corporate investment increases. None of those 4 things require your paycheck to move even $1. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's arithmetic. GDP is an aggregate. Averages hide distributions, and the distribution is the entire story. Corporate profit margins, as a share of GDP, have spent recent years near their highest levels since the government started tracking the number after World War II. Meanwhile, labor's share of that same GDP has been trending downward for over 2 decades. That is not a value judgment about capitalism. It's a description of where the growth is physically going before it ever reaches a household. Who owns the thing that captures corporate profit? Stock. The top 10% of American households by wealth own a supermajority of all corporate equities and mutual fund shares held in this country. Bottom half of American households combined own a sliver so small it barely shows up as a rounding error on the same chart. So when the market hits a record high, and every anchor on every channel calls it great news for the economy, what actually happened is that a specific, already wealthy slice of the country got measurably wealthier, and the rest of the country got a headline. Derek isn't rich. He is not a hedge fund manager. Is a 31-year-old with RSUs and a 401k he's been contributing to since his first job. He is, mechanically, on the capital side of this divide, even in a small way, and that small exposure has compounded into something real. Is on the labor side. Her only asset is her paycheck, and her paycheck is priced by an entirely different, much slower-moving mechanism than the stock market. Here's the thing nobody says out loud when they explain the economy is strong. Low unemployment is genuinely good. A low unemployment rate tells you almost nothing about whether the jobs available to you pay enough to keep up with your actual cost of living. You can have a historically low unemployment rate and a historically high number of people working 2 jobs to afford 1 household. Full employment describes whether you have a job. It says nothing about whether that job is enough. So let's talk about what enough actually costs now. Headline inflation really has come down substantially from its peak. That's real. Falling inflation rate does not mean falling prices. It means prices are still rising, just more slowly. The stuff you bought 2 years ago at the peak of the price surge did not get cheaper. It stayed exactly as expensive as it became, and then kept getting slightly more expensive on top of that. Disinflation is not deflation. Nobody is giving you your money back. The rate of the bleeding slowed. The wound stayed open. Headline CPI blends together categories that behaved completely differently. Consumer electronics got cheaper. Shelter, health insurance, childcare, auto insurance, groceries rose dramatically faster than the headline number. Car insurance premiums, in particular, climbed by double digits in back-to-back years. Health insurance premiums for employer-sponsored family coverage have climbed for years, running at multiples of wage growth, silently eating raises before employees ever see them. Isn't that she doesn't understand inflation slowed down? It's that slowed down was never the question her checking account was asking. Checking account was asking whether her paycheck this month covers rent, insurance, groceries, and childcare this month at this month's prices. Prices that are permanently, cumulatively higher than they were 3 years ago, stacked on top of each other with a raise that never fully caught up. Let's put a real number on that gap, because vague dissatisfaction is easy to dismiss and a specific number is not. Wages grew for the bottom half of earners for a stretch after the worst of the inflation spike passed. Grew after a period where the same wages were crushed by a multi-year price surge doesn't mean caught up. Means the hole stopped getting deeper. Workers in the middle and lower half of the income distribution are, right now, roughly where they were before the surge started. You can hand someone a 4% raise for 3 straight years, and if prices rose 4.5% each of those years, that person has been getting steadily poorer, while receiving a document that says the opposite in bold letters at the top. Total household net worth in this country has grown by tens of trillions of dollars in the recent stretch. The overwhelming majority of that new wealth accrued to households that already owned homes, already owned stock portfolios. If you did not own an asset before the surge started, you were not positioned to benefit from the asset's appreciation. Owning nothing and renting everything means the economy's growth engine runs entirely without you in the car. Okay, so you're thinking, fine, Nick, but this is just rich get richer, the oldest complaint in economics. Some of what looks like an economy leaving people behind is actually an economy in the middle of an enormous, disruptive, genuinely difficult transition. Remote work reshaping entire commercial real estate sectors. This economy avoided a widely predicted recession that most serious forecasters thought was likely. Recession would have hurt Maya far more than the current, uncomfortable but employed economy has. Wage growth for the bottom of the income distribution actually outpaced wage growth for the top for a meaningful stretch recently. That's real, that's good. And pretending it isn't happening would make me exactly as dishonest as the anchors cherry-picking the GDP number. But here's the piece that Steelman's argument still doesn't answer. A tight labor market compressing the wage gap is a real win. It is also a win happening against the backdrop of a wealth gap so large that a few good years barely registers against it. Credit card debt in this country recently crossed the highest total ever recorded, in raw dollar terms, in American history. Delinquency rates on that debt climbed to their highest levels in over a decade. Auto loan delinquencies did the same when your wages inch up 3% and your unavoidable expenses jump 7%. The difference has to come from somewhere. Increasingly, it's coming from a revolving balance at 20+% interest, quietly compounding against people who are already behind. Looks like sitting in your car in a parking lot after grocery shopping, looking at the receipt. Looks like checking a bank balance before hitting confirm on something completely ordinary. It looks like scrolling past a headline that says the stock market hit a new all-time high and feeling nothing. Looks like your parents telling you the economy was easier when they were your age. Running the actual numbers on housing costs relative to income back then versus now, and discovering, uncomfortably, that they were right. Economists have started calling this pattern a K-shaped economy, and the shape is the whole explanation. Line goes up, asset holders, higher earners. The other line goes down, or sideways at best, renters, lower and middle earners. Both lines exist inside the same GDP number, the same unemployment rate, the same "the economy is strong" press conference. Aggregate consumer spending has stayed remarkably resilient through this entire stretch. If the top 20% of earners increase their spending, that shows up as strong aggregate consumer spending even if the bottom 60% are pulling back, trading down at the grocery store, and delaying big purchases. There's a term for the emotional version of this entire phenomenon, the vibesession. Sentiment surveys, unlike GDP, ask individual humans how their individual lives feel. So where does that leave Maya? And where does that leave you, if you're the one reading this feeling more like her than like Derek? You did not design a tax and wage system where corporate profit share of GDP quietly outpaced labor's share for 2 decades. Feeling behind is not a referendum on your effort or your choices. The entire story I just told you is, underneath the frustration, a story about which side of an asset line you sit on. Every dollar you root from spending into an owned, appreciating asset is a dollar you are moving from the labor side of this K to the capital side of it. Not going to stand here and tell you a $200 a month index fund contribution puts you on equal footing with generational asset ownership. It is the difference between experiencing 0% of the market's gains and experiencing some percent of them. If this is the kind of breakdown you want more of, I run a school community where we go a lot deeper on exactly this kind of thing. The tight labor market piece is real leverage, and it is leverage that expires. If you are employed right now, that is the single best window you will have to negotiate. Wage compression at the bottom of the distribution has been one of the only genuinely good structural stories in this entire economy, and it is not permanent. I want to land this somewhere honest, because I don't think despair is the right takeaway, and I don't think blind optimism is either. You are not wrong for feeling like the good news wasn't written about you. It was an average of a line that includes you and a line that doesn't, and the line that doesn't has been pulling harder for a long time. I'm not a financial advisor, and none of this is financial advice. The dollars that pass through your hands this year, what percentage of them are on the labor side of this economy, and what percentage are on the capital side? Because that ratio is the number actually deciding which of these two economies you're going to be standing inside 5 years from now.